Hello, folks. This is a video. It's an ASMR video done by a fellow YouTuber called Miyagi. This is Miyagi right here, the little effing brown dog. I will share a link to her channel in the description below, but I thought it would make a lovely something nice to look at. I can't remember how I was going to start this, but this is a story from my childhood, as best as I can remember, based on what I've been told and based on what I have read. It's from when I was a baby. But anyways, I have an older sister. She is 2.5 years older than me. And when she was born, we were like polar opposites when we were babies. She looked like a porcelain doll when she was a baby. She looked like a porcelain doll. Me, I was a roly-poly chunky monkey. I was a very chubby baby. She was one that, as a baby, as an infant, as a toddler, she did not like getting dirty. She did not like getting her hands or her face dirty at all. Whereas me, well, I was... yeah, I loved getting dirty. Well, most babies do. There are so many differences between her and I. When she was born, when she came out, she was pretty much spotlessly clean. The average baby, when they're born, they come out, they're all like gross and disgusting, covered in uck from being born. My sister, no, she was very clean, very clean. And right from birth, her neck was strong enough to hold her head up. My dad got lectured by a nurse for not holding her head, for supporting her head when he first held her. He didn't need to. She did a perfectly fine job holding her own head up. My mom and dad, yeah, she was a beautiful baby girl. And they loved dressing her up in adorable little dresses, and it was like she was very photogenic. Her whole life, my sister has always been very photogenic. I do not think that a picture exists out there of her not. Yeah. So, and me on the other hand, polar opposite. Now, when I was just a few months old, there was this one night when my mom was in the living room nursing me. So yeah, I was just like I said, just a few months old, and she. Sorry, this sounded way better in my head. But anyways, she was sitting in the living room nursing me. When she was finished, she stood up to place me in the bassinet beside the couch when she suddenly felt it felt like someone was pulling her off to the side, and she collapsed. My dad was in the bedroom, getting ready to go out. It was a guy's night out, so he was in there, and all of a sudden he heard 2 thuds. He heard a soft thud and then a slightly louder thud. And so he went out into the living room to see what was going on, what had made the noise, when he discovered my mom and I both on the floor. She was laying there writhing on the floor, and she was foaming at the mouth, and it was red, bloody foam. Because what had happened was she had dropped me, and then she had fallen to the floor, and apparently she had reached into her mouth and pulled out a tooth, one of her teeth. So she was bleeding from the mouth. My dad had no idea what was going on, but he picked me up and laid me in the bassinet, and then he called 911. I did not cry at all when I was dropped, when I fell, yeah. Sorry. So the ambulance came and whisked my mother away to the hospital. And the doctors there, they diagnosed her with epilepsy because she had had a seizure. My mom didn't believe them. She didn't believe that she actually had epilepsy. But she followed through with the treatment that they prescribed, and continued on her way, basically. Now, at the time, my sister was, she was about 2.5, 3. She was closer to 3 years of age by that time when that happened. Skip ahead a few years, a couple more years, and my brother is born. And when he was little, our mom, she ended up having another seizure, and she got whisked away back to the hospital. Oh no, before her second seizure, she started seeing spots. She started having spots in her vision. So she went to see an eye specialist, and it was the eye specialist that told her that she had a brain tumor. And pretty much described her as a walking corpse, because she was just riddled with cancer. So she went back to the doctors and told them, informed them as to what she had been told, and they I'm so sorry about the yawning, but so they re-diagnosed her with a brain tumor, and she ended up having a second seizure. And when she had that seizure, they shaved her head on the one side, and or did they do both sides? That part I don't know. I don't remember. But they shaved her head. They cut her skull open, and they removed as much of the tumor as they could reach. But of course, by this time, it had gone untreated for several years. And so it was very difficult. But they removed as much as they possibly could and closed her up. And then came the long, arduous journey of recovering her abilities, because she became, because it was in her memory, the memory part of her brain. And so my dad had to, he spent the next 6 months reteaching her, reteaching her how to walk, and take care of herself, feed herself, that kind of stuff. I don't think it ever affected her speech, but she had no memory of even being married and having children. A few years later, again, she had another seizure, went into the hospital, and again, they operated. She, over when she was properly diagnosed with a brain tumor, the doctor said that she'd be lucky if she made it to the end of the year. She actually survived another 7 years, going through a total of 4 brain surgeries, and a total of 6 seizures. And during that time, she tried to raise the 3 of us children while my dad worked for the railroad. He struggled with not knowing if he was going to come home to my mom not being alive. He worried about coming home and finding one of us injured or possibly not alive. He worried daily. But as we got older and our mom got worse, certain things became more difficult for her to do, like handling my sister, who is always very outgoing, outspoken, very bossy, and commanding, and more and more difficult to control. There was an incident that I recall from when we were still fairly young, before she got too sick, where she got into a fight. That my mom and sister got into a fight, and my dad. So my mom had a younger sister. My aunt is still alive. My aunt had made my dad a leather belt. Now this leather belt was like 3 inches wide. 3 inches wide leather belt, hand stitched with leather, and so it was like 3 inches wide. It was too big to fit through regular. Like, he couldn't wear it as a belt, so it just hung on the wall. And that's what he would use to punish us when we were bad. Yes, he would throw us over his knee and spank us on our backside when we were bad. Now, this one day in particular, he was away at work, and I remember my mom and my sister yelling at each other, and my mom told me to go get the belt so she could punish my sister. I do not know what the argument was about between the two of them. Probably my sister not doing what she was told to do and being defiant, because that's just how she was. She did not like being told what to do by our mother. She was okay with it up to a point with our dad. So I went and I got the belt, handed it to Mom. She went to hit my sister with it. My sister grabbed it from her and hit her instead. And so Mom was just shocked and so upset and startled, I guess, that she turned around and she ran off to the front door of the house. And my sister, I guess, she probably went to her room. And I managed to calm our mom down enough, because she was threatening. She was to the point, on the verge of leaving. She was ready to just, get in the car and leave. And not come back. We did not know that at the time she was suffering from pain. She was, in the last several years of her life, she was just constantly in pain. There were times, my parents were friends with a couple that lived just outside of town. They were foster parents, and they fostered, they had a farm, and they fostered 12 kids at a time. The older kids helped with chores around on the property, on the farm, and the younger kids just stayed out of the way. And so quite often we would go and stay with them for respite. And one time when my dad was away with work, the ministry talked my mom into signing us over for 6 months of respite care. So we stayed at the foster home for 6 months. But whenever my mom would bring us up to the foster home for respite care, she was invited to stay while we were there, just to sit and relax and whatnot, while we spent time with the other kids there. But my mom always refused. We did not know at the time. We learned later, or at least I know I learned later. I don't know if my brother and sister ever learned. But I learned later, many years later, that my mom, on those days, she would leave. She would drive down the highway a little ways, and then she would just park on the side of the highway. And she would just sit in the car until it was time to come pick us up and take us back home. And we would be there all day. During the 6 months of respite, it wasn't like that though, because we lived there for 6 months. We had our own beds that we shared with other children that were there being fostered. Whenever my mom ended up in the hospital for brain surgery or whatever, we would go and stay at the foster home as well. And like I said, it was a big farm, 2 stories, two-story house. The older kids, like the teenagers, they had rooms downstairs, and they had their own rooms downstairs. And then us younger kids, they had 2 bedrooms upstairs, one for the girls and one for the boys. My sister always ended up in the girls' room. My brother and I would both be in the boys' room, because there was only one boy in the boys' room upstairs, and there were 2 girls in the girls' room upstairs. So, and in the boys' room, there was bunk beds, there was a bed, and there was a crib. I ended up with the bed. My brother ended up in the crib, and the one foster boy was in the bottom bunk of the bunk beds. The only thing that made it easier for us, for my dad, to deal and cope with us being in foster care was the foster parents were friends, and were more than willing to let us, my dad and my mom, come and visit us anytime they wanted. And then her last seizure. It was a little over a month before my 10th birthday that she had a seizure. And like usual, 911 call, ambulance came, took her to the hospital. Doctors were ready to operate. My dad said no more surgery, no more operations, because we were older now, and it was too hard for my dad. He couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't sit there, and he couldn't stand there and see my mom as an empty husk like she was for like 6 months each time. 6-7 months at a time, just trying to be a person, and struggling, and then all of a sudden, just one day out of the blue, she's fine again. But it was just too much, trying to take care of her and take care of all 3 of us kids. So yeah, he said no more. So she was kept in the hospital, and they took care of her, and she eventually stopped talking. My dad, every day after work, he would come up to the hospital. Every day after school, we would take the bus up to the hospital. Rather than go home, we would take the bus up to the hospital, and then and be with our mom until Dad got off work, and he'd come up to the hospital, and we'd sit with Mom for a bit, and then he would take us home, shower, change, maybe eat, maybe not. And then he'd go back up to the hospital for a couple of more hours. Then one day in particular, it was a usual day. Brought us home. He showered, changed, and he was just getting ready to go back up to the hospital when he gets a phone call from the hospital saying, "Oh, don't worry about coming back. She's gone to sleep. You can come back tomorrow." So then he was getting ready to relax and stay home with us, and a little while later he gets another phone call, and it turned out this phone call was from our uncle, my mom's brother. calling to let my dad know that the hospital had called him because they felt it would be easier. The bad news would be easier coming from family, a relative, rather than calling my dad direct, to let him know that she actually passed away peacefully in her sleep. He never did tell us until many years later that she had passed away in her sleep. We just knew that she had passed away because it was the first time that we had ever seen him cry, and it was the first time we had ever heard him swear in our presence. And we just knew. We didn't need to be told, we just knew. And this was almost exactly 1 month before my 10th birthday. My brother and sister, my brother, we all took it really hard. I took it the hardest because my sister never really did see eye to eye with our mom, and my brother was too young. I was the closest of the three of us to our mom. And it took me a very, very, very long time to come to terms over losing her. I was in and out of counseling for 20 years almost. I'm just trying to think here. It wasn't until after I was married and that I was finally able to come to terms when I spoke with a couple from a Christian community, a Christian town that had come to town. They were friends with our friends that had a church, and they came and with another couple. They were Christian counselors, and I sat with the one couple and told them about my mom and my life, and they were the ones that finally helped me come to terms, to the point where I could talk about my mom without breaking down in tears and crying. Yeah, so my brother and my sister, they just, to me it feels like they got over the loss of our mom really quickly. My sister has been pretty much she suffers from manic depression, or it's now bipolar disorder, since the age of 4. My brother, he suffers from depression. He started getting started suffering from depression later, in high school. I started suffering from depression, from when our mom passed away. I became very introverted. Before that, I was very outgoing and friendly, up to a point. Because it was like I had lost my best friend. Over the years, many of my best friends, if not all of my best friends, have always been older than me, whether by a year or 2 to 20 years. I've always felt more comfortable around older people. Yeah. Actually, I think my oldest best friend was, oh my goodness. Well, I was in my 20s. My mid 20s. I was in my mid 20s. And she was in her mid 70s. So yeah. 50 years difference. She was my best friend the last 2.5 years of her life. Yeah. So, anyways, my mom, she was a very strong, independent woman with a younger sister and a younger brother. She was a very beautiful woman. She was a hippie with really, really long, thick, long flowing black hair. Yeah, she was very independent. She had a motorcycle when my dad met her and they dated. She did a lot of different crafts. Knitting, crocheting, macrame, needlepoint, sewing. She designed iron-ons. She had a loom, so she did weaving as well. She could do shorthand. Basically any craft back then, you name it. If she didn't know it, she learned how to do it. And she mastered quite a few. Oh, she was an amazing photographer too. And she was a natural with firearms. She was better than my dad. And my dad's pretty good. I think that's where I get it from. I'm a natural with firearms too. Yeah, it's too bad that she never got to meet any of her grandchildren. Something that she did in anticipation of being a grandmother, though, is she made 3 baby blankets. One for each of us for our firstborn. My oldest daughter, Wolfie, she got her first blanket. My sister never had children. My brother, he's got 2 children, a boy and a girl. But yeah, his oldest never got that first blanket because I don't know. They had been sealed in a box, and on the box it was written for when she became a grandmother. My stepmother had found the box in storage, and she had opened it up, and she was the one that picked which of the 3 blankets got to be my daughter's first blanket. And the other 2 and the box eventually disappeared. I don't know. I would have to ask my dad. Because one year the 2 of them had a yard sale and they sold a lot of stuff. They got rid of a lot of stuff. Yeah. My stepmother, I swear, she was envious. She was jealous of my mom. Because she couldn't hold a candle to my mom, that's for darn sure. But, anyways, that's just, I'll probably talk more about my mom in a later video. But I'm gonna go. It's been nice reminiscing about my mom, though. It always is. It's been a long time since I've talked about her. But she's never far from my thoughts. Yeah. Anyways, till next time.